My main reason for uploading this video was I realized that our entire concept of what the 12 are is going to be flipped on its head with the next patch coming, which is 6.5, which coincides with the release of the third Alliance raid in the Path of the 12. And we're going to learn, hopefully, exactly why it is they've deemed to show themselves and why they've been challenging us to combat outside of gameplay purposes, because it would be a boring Alliance raid if there was no combat, would there? It's a very important topic because the 12 are ingrained into the lore of FF14. Or more specifically, they're ingrained into the lore of Eorzea, because faith in the 12 is not really adopted outside of Eorzea. At least, as far as I'm aware, I've never seen a mention of the 12 or a worship of the 12 outside of Eorzea's borders. The myth of its creation itself is a story that's written in the Eorzean Encyclopedia. I broke it down a little bit and I kind of elaborated on it just to make it more digestible as a story narrative. But I wasn't going to make it unless I had something to add, and I did have something to add at the end, which was the parallels between the myth of Eorzea's creation and the actuality, the truth of Eorzea's creation. Where are we going? Yeah, the creation myth of Eorzea. So, the creation myth of Eorzea has taken on countless forms over the ages. One prominent astrologian and theologian, Lupin of Charlian, has spent his academic career studying the overlap in these renditions and has compiled what he claims is a definitive tale. Now, the tale that I dictated, as I said, I elaborated on certain aspects of it, but I essentially kept to the original tale, which was apparently transcribed by a person named Lupin of Charlian, and he took all the myths, all the legends, all the stories, all the tales of the peoples of Eorzea and compiled them into a creation myth. So the creation myth itself is just a hodgepodge of everybody's opinion of what the creation myth of Eorzea was. And it kind of reads like that as well. It reads like at first there was nothing, then there was the Big Bang and everything started to come into form. And it only deals with the creation of the realm itself. Well, technically it's an elaboration of the planet's creation, but it mainly just deals with Eorzea. But you have to remember, the tale itself, even though it's read by players, you technically have to look at it through the lens of a citizen of Eorzea. How they'd perceive the creation of Eorzea. Don't forget, most of these people who walk the streets of Limsa, Leminsa and Gridania and Ul'dah and beyond don't know much about the truth of Eorzea's creation, of the world's creation for that matter. Most of them won't know who the Ancients are. I don't think any of them know who the Ancients are. I don't even think the leaders of the city-states are fully privy to that information. That information is largely compartmentalized. They know who the Ascians were, but as far as I'm aware, they don't know that the Ascians were the Ancients. At least it's never been referenced, as far as I'm aware. But I mainly took at it, I looked at the entire story through the lens of an Eorzean citizen. Mainly for a couple of reasons. The first one is I wanted to look at it through their lens and feel what it'd be like for a person who looks at them and goes, these are my gods, this is my faith, and this is how it's written. It's essentially like somebody reading scripture. Then the other one was primarily to do with the events of the Alliance raids of Endwalker and the potential ramifications of what's going to happen in 6.5 from the perspective of the in-story narrative and the people of Eorzea. So what do I mean by that? So ever since the start of the game, even 1.0, when we logged in, the 12 were the first thing that greeted us, because we had to choose a patron deity. We had to choose, I can't remember exactly what the terminology was for it, but when you created your character, and when I created my character, and everybody creates their character, they pick a patron. There's no exact reason they're given for it, long ago there used to be some significance of picking it in terms of stat differences. I'm not sure if that's still the case now. But everybody had to pick a patron deity. And people just went, I don't really understand, but it seems to match up to our calendar. So people mostly picked their birthday. I think that's actually what I picked as well. And I think I ended up with Daliak the Scholar as a result. I'm not fully certain. But yeah, the 12 greeted us when we first stepped into Eorzea. Not literally, but the mythos. And they've been part of the mythos ever since, all the way up until this point. People don't go, oh my god, they go, by the 12 and stuff like that. You hear Alpha No mention that every 5 minutes. By the 12, by the 12. But my main point is, I wanted to view the creation myth of Eorzea and study the potential ramifications on the Eorzean people and the story of FF14 overall. I wanted to study the ramifications of what's happening in the Alliance raid and how it would pertain to the overall story of FF14, and also the NPCs, the people that reside in Eorzea. Now, what do I mean by that? The 12, up until 6.1, were considered mythical. Like, people believed in them, but there was never any evidence to state that these beings actually existed. There's lots of creation myths, hence the ones I went over in the video, but there was never any concrete evidence. Everybody picked a patron, but it's not like these patrons dropped out of the sky and just go, I bestow blessings upon everybody, and then flew away again. Now that they've revealed themselves in 6.1 and 6.3, they've been doing combat with us. They need us to do something. They have some sort of dream or aspiration, which will only be revealed in 6.5. We don't have all the puzzle pieces, unfortunately. But whatever it is, seems to be significant enough that they needed to appear themselves. There's a multitude of reasons why they could have done it. Hydaelyn's demise is one of them. The disappearance of Zodiac is the second one. Like, there's a number of different theories and ideas. But what I wanted to focus on is, one theory suggests that the 12 that we've been interacting with are about to disappear. Similar in the vein of Hydaelyn disappearing. I mean, she burned her own soul in her combat with us in order to test us, essentially. And then she passed on. We don't know the nature of what these beings are, the 12. We do know they're affected by the fate of the people of Eorzea. It changes how they look, how they act, and it even creates new beings in their realms, Dalamud being a prime example. But, say for example, 6.5 comes around, something major happens, and the 12, the reason that they came around, for example, was to pass the stewardship of Eorzea onto us, and then to depart for parts unknown. Maybe they're going to disappear, maybe they're just going to fade from existence. I don't know. But what would be the significance of us learning the truth of what the 12 actually are to the people of Eorzea? Now, think about it like this. As far as we're aware, the only people who have knowledge about what's happening on Umphalos at the moment is the Scions, ourselves included, Snow Jim, certain members of the Sharlayan Forum. For Shino, I'd say definitely, because they loaned us the devices that we used, well, Graha used, in order to examine the realms. And then a few other individuals scattered around, but that's about it. Nobody else, the citizens of Eorzea, don't have any idea what's going on up here. They don't know this realm exists. There's been myths about it, but they've never seen it before. But what would happen if the 12 suddenly disappeared? Or we just learned, say for example, we learned the truth of what they are. Will this be explained in story to the people of Eorzea? Or will the truth be buried or kept hidden from the people themselves? Because let's not forget, the people have they have faith in their deities, which are the 12. What would happen if they learned the truth of what they are? It's like us tomorrow waking up and we learn the secrets of God. How would that affect us? So think about the overall story. How would it affect them? Now, I know I'm reaching a bit because Alliance raids are segregated from the primary story, but they're not fully segregated from the story of the world. The Crystal Tower is a prime example. It exists. The NPCs know about it, so its existence and what happens in it is known to the people below. I'm going to assume whatever happens here is going to be documented, at least by the Sharlayan scholars, and the information is going to be released. But what would that information do to people? Like, how would the people of Eorzea react if I literally walked down, stood in the middle of Limsa Laminsa and yelled at the top of my voice, I have been to Omphalos, I have met Byragot the Builder, I have met Halone, I've met at least 8 or 9 members of the 12. I'm literally the Warrior of Light. It's like I'm the one person people would believe. But what would that sort of information do to the society when they realize, oh my god, they're actually real? I mean, I had faith all this time, but they actually are real. I could see society getting turned on its head by something like that. We have no frame of reference to exactly how something like that would affect people. But that's what I wanted to explore when I made this video. That was the main thing on my mind. And I know, as I said, I know I'm nitpicking, and this may not turn out to be anything, but it's just something that has nagged at my mind ever since 6.1 launched. I really want this to be a catalyst for something that will affect the overall landscape of the realm of Eorzea itself. If I was a betting man as well, I know I want the truth to come out, but I have a feeling that in order to preserve peace, faith in Eorzea is just going to be kept as that. Faith in the myth of the 12. And we're not going to tell the truth, whatever the truth may be. Unless it's something that directly pertains to a threat to Eorzea or Aetheris itself, we're not going to say anything. I can only imagine what the plot of 6.5 is going to actually run out to be. I've been theorizing about it for a good while now, as has everybody else, as have you. But I can't really figure out exactly what it's going to be. I'm assuming there's some threat, but they're not exactly acting like there is a threat. They're acting like there is something they need us for, but they haven't specifically stated what it is. However, whatever it is has required them in order to weigh us. So we're getting weighed every time they combat us. And we're not combating them to defeat them, they're just weighing us, essentially. They're getting a test of our strength, a test of our mettle, a test of our resolve. And it has to do, in my opinion, with whatever the hell this thing is going to actually lead to. And this is actually going to go into something else that I actually want to theorize with you after I finish overall examination of my video. So, I'm running around here like a weirdo. I was going to go into an alliance raid just for the hell of it, but I have a feeling I wouldn't be able to actually focus on the chat or anything else, and especially since I'm still trying to learn Black Mage. I've been playing it for months now and I still haven't fully learned it. I'm pretty bad at it, to be perfectly honest. Although I'm a good bad at it, if that makes sense. I did mention at the end of it, one of my main theories regarding, or one of my main concepts of the video itself was, when I was examining the creation myth, I couldn't help but notice the parallels between myth and the reality of things as they are as we learn them. So let me just have a look at the creation myth here real quick. So the first line of the creation myth states, in the beginning there was neither light nor darkness, only the whirl. So essentially in the beginning there was nothing, and then there was a swirling vortex of energy in the middle of the nothing, and creation sprang out from it. That lines up with other creation myths around the world as well. There was nothing at first, and then a being sprang to life, and everything else got created from there. So the creation myth of Eorzea draws a lot of parallels with creation myths of the real world. And that makes a lot of sense because a lot of the story of FF14, both main and side story, draws direct inspiration from historic events and historic mythology of the Earth itself and all of its previous civilizations. But I couldn't help but just look at it and just go, there's a lot of analogies for the truth of the creation of the world itself. So one of the prime examples I gave in the video itself was the comet being summoned down by Nemea in order to destroy the excess that her children had created in order to bring balance to the world. Sounded like a perfect analogy for Hydaelyn, because we know Hydaelyn dives up, then she dives down like a meteorite and slams down, and then she shatters the world essentially, and that's how she created the reflections. It sounded like a great analogy for that, but everything else just sounded like little tiny nods to the creation myths of Eorzea as well. Like the first half of it is essentially going through, at first there was nothing, then a god came into being and they started creating the firmament, they started creating the waters, the rivers, the seas, the mountains start springing up, and then life just starts to balance itself out. Although I do find it interesting that when you look at the creation myths, Nofika is the one responsible for creating life itself, which is very interesting. And I find her to be a fascinating figure, Nofika in particular. Primarily because, if you recall from 6.3 when we were travelling around with the members of the 12, as they wanted to learn more about the realm and our connection to it, and vice versa for us to learn more about them. Nofika's interactions apparently with the elementals of the 12's Wood was very interesting. So they sensed that she arrived in the 12's Wood, and they all reported into her just going, "It's an honour to meet you, ma'am, this is like such and such." It happened off screen, of course, we didn't hear about it, but they all reported to her. But I found that fascinating because the elementals have been dead silent since the events of the Calamity itself. In 1.0, and the story, the main story and the side story, the elementals were in plain sight, wandering around, doing their thing, communicating with us as well. So we could have open dialogues and communications with them. After the events of the Calamity, the elementals were greatly weakened, as was the 12's Wood itself, and all communication with the elementals falls to the white mages, for example. Or I can't remember the exact name of the horned individuals in Gridania, but it falls to them. It falls to their group in order to communicate the feelings of the 12's Wood itself. But the fact that the elementals woke up enough to report to her just going, yeah, things are going okay, I guess. We're still pretty weak at the moment. It's going to take us like 1,000 years to recover or something. But I found that very interesting, the fact that they all woke up and they all communicated with her. And I'm just like, okay, start waking up a bit more now and start communicating with us, because I miss the elementals. Pajai or something, thank you. There's one thing I did leave out of the creation myths of Eorzea. I mainly addressed the fact that once the 12 were happy with creation as it was, they created the 7 heavens, and they all retreated to that 7 heavens itself. But in the mythos of Eorzea, which is in the Encyclopedia, at the same time they created the 7 heavens, they created 7 hells to mirror them. So the Heaven of Fire was one of the first places that we fought, and the Heaven of Lightning, but there's also a Hell of Lightning at the same time and a Hell of Fire. So for example, let me read the Hell of Heaven and Fire to you real quick, directly from the Encyclopedia. In the Heaven of Fire sprawls an endless city built by Nald'Thal from golden bricks fired in the heat of Azem's sun, which we saw directly. Here reside the just and the fair, the honest and the philanthropic. The Hell of Fire was formed when the rubble left after the creation of its heavenly counterpart was cast from the firmament into the dark pit and set alight. Here burned those who wrongly judged their peers, those who tricked their customers, and those who gave and received dowries or dowsers. I can't pronounce that word. But the point is, the creation myths of Eorzea state that there's a heaven and there's a hell. Now, these are the creation myths of the people themselves. They believe there's a heaven and they believe there's a hell. We know the truth. The truth of the fact is they're one and the same. There's no pearly gates. There's nobody waiting to weigh you and just go like, I'm going to throw you into heaven or I'm going to throw you into hell. We all go to the same place when we depart, which is the ethereal sea. That's the truth of the matter. But the Eorzean people believe in a heaven and a hell. But their belief, don't forget, directly affects the 12 and their environments. So, them believing in a heaven of fire and a hell of fire would make them both possible. But we've only seen the heavens. So we fought in the heaven of lightning first, then the heaven of fire, then the heaven of earth, and the heaven of ice. We still have 2 more heavens left. However, don't forget there's a polar opposite to this, and there is a 7th heaven as well, which we haven't seen yet. A lot of people theorize as well that this is the 7th heaven, Omphalos itself, that connects all the other 6, which is plausible. But we can't escape the fact that this thing is here. It's not a portal to the other realms, because the other realms have their portals right here. I read a theory actually a while ago, a long while ago actually, that this may be a gate to the 7 hells. So this Omphalos connects to a polar opposite of Omphalos, and then around them will be 6 gates to the 7 hells. I like that idea, I really do. But if I was going to state that we'd see the 7 hells in one patch, my answer would be no. I don't think we would. But I just found that interesting. We do have 2 heavens that we have yet to see though. The heaven of water and the heaven of wind are the last 2 heavens that we've yet to see. In terms of the members of the 12 that we haven't seen yet, don't forget Nemia showed up in the heaven of earth alongside Althic. So we still are missing 1. So that begs the question, like, where we're going to be going. Like, I think the heaven of wind is definitely going to be one of our final places to go. But are we really going to go to the heaven of water just to fight 1 boss? Or will there be something else? Will we fight there and then suddenly get teleported to the 7th heaven, the final one itself, in order to fight whatever it is we need to fight? Or is it possible we might fight Nemia again? I doubt it, but anything can happen. Yeah, that's true as well. Like, I've said this numerous times. You can see the 12 are actually here wandering around. So I'm going to assume this is Lim Lane. But they're all wandering around as well. Nemia's over there swimming around. Then you have Halone is over here. Menfina in her bunny rabbit is over here. Actually, no, that is Halone, never mind. And I think the only one that's missing is Nofika. I haven't seen her wandering around. And if you look at the realm of wind, we only see 1. But that makes sense as well, because don't forget, Oscan is still unaccounted for. And I'm still of the opinion that Sus Derek is Oscan, just like everybody else. Yeah, Nofika was she was some kind of plant thing. She was like she wasn't an elemental. But I don't know if she's wandering around. I didn't see her at all. And it's kind of bugging me as well, the fact that I didn't see her. Maybe she's lying over here. I haven't looked over here. Nofika, Nofika, Nofika. Where are you? Oh, there she is. Okay, so she's hanging around. She's blending in with everything. I think the reason I probably didn't see her is because I'm colorblind. Jeez. Okay, so there she is. Okay, so she's still hanging around. In terms of what the hell she is... Oh, where's she gone? Oh, she dropped her acorn. Okay. Oh, don't drop your acorn. There you go. Alright, well, she's there at least. So the only one who's really missing is Osgon. But as we know, there's a certain Oppo sitting outside with Susteric. Kragon, that's his name. In my opinion, his name is Susteric. That's his full name in my eyes. Let's go out and see Susteric just before I move on to the next topic. Oh, come now. You really needn't worry about me. I meant it when I said I would strive with you to the last. So go on, tend to your own duties, and let us meet again when the investigation resumes. Very well, Derek. Why don't you go wander around and create us a couple of more mountains? Because I know you and him are Osgon. We ain't silly, we know the truth. Look into my eyes, Derek. No, I don't want to look at the camera. What? Look into my eyes, Derek. You are sus. And I vote you off this spaceship because you are so sus. I was talking to a friend about this a few days ago. Of islands, specifically. So let me teleport over to the lower Morby dry docks. Now, my island is not very developed. I haven't really paid proper attention to it, to be perfectly honest. I enjoy it. I've visited there many times, but paying full attention to it and constantly doing stuff with it is beyond the scope of my actual attention span. Because my attention span goes into the lore of the game rather than doing the islands. I really want to do it, I just can't maintain attention on it. And I look at people with their beautiful islands and I go, I really want to do that. I just can't pay attention. But I might have to do it primarily because I now know there's giant spriggans roaming around here somewhere. So I really want to get a few giant spriggans for the farm. My friend and I were talking and we were discussing the housing situation. And I mentioned to him, is it possible or is it likely, what do you think about the fact that islands are getting more and more sophisticated? We're able to customize them a lot more than we did at the start. And now we're able to dress them up similar to outdoor housing. What do you think about the idea of the island system itself replacing the housing system of FF14? Now, the reason I brought this topic up is because the housing system of FF14 has been a disaster ever since it was implemented. Now, what I mean by that is, originally it was a first come first served situation. Everybody just poached houses whenever they got them. People would be logging in, mashing the login button, trying to beat the queue to log in at the beginning of a new patch in order to try and get the new houses and stuff like that. So it was first come first served. And then you have other servers around FF14 who have individuals who have bought out entire wards. Like some of the servers that were completely abandoned, or not abandoned, that had a very low population. There were individuals who bought out entire wards of houses and customized them, and then refused to relinquish them when people started giving them backlash. Like, I'm not here to discuss that. I am on the side of the people in that regard, just to make myself clear, because one person owning an entire ward is not on. Like, they've been constantly having to introduce new wards to deal with player demand. That demand kind of goes down once new servers and new data centers start coming in. But I think it's gotten to the point where housing has become less of an important thing to people. Or at least to me, housing is not really important anymore. But from what I've seen, and I've asked a few people about this, a lot of people have paid a lot less attention to housing now that island sanctuaries have become a thing. Because when people were giving a choice between going to your house or going to your island sanctuary, a lot of people would prefer to come to the sanctuary Because in the end, it's an entire zone dedicated specifically to you that you can now dress up like a house. And some people have dressed them up in very elaborate ways. Like, let me just try and bring up a few examples. But this is an example of what you can do with the overall furnishing system. And that is amazing. And this is like a space you can invite people over to as well. They don't have to jump through wards and stuff like that in order to see it. But I think that's... I don't know if that's a player-made example or if that was a patch one. But the point is, you're able to dress up your own thing similar to that. And to me, that is incredible. But this is what's had me thinking as well. People are caring more about island sanctuaries these days than they are about housing. But in my mind, the island sanctuary is a perfect replacement for the housing system. Now, I will stress that Naoki Yoshida has on numerous occasions stated that the island sanctuary system is not meant to be a replacement for the housing system. But you have to... The specific words he said, it's not meant to be a replacement. That's not to say it can't be a replacement. So they could eventually turn around and just go, the housing system is more trouble than it's worth, it's taking up too many resources. We've decided now that island sanctuaries are in a place where people are happy with, they're able to customize them similar to how housing was. We've decided we're going to decommission the housing system and we'll give everybody a refund of their housing plot. They've refunded housing plots to people before, so that's possible. There's definitely a system already in game for it. So if they demolish houses for everybody, there are NPCs that will collect them and they can get a refund. I think it's something that's highly likely, in my opinion. Maybe not in 7.0, maybe far in the future. But I think as this island sanctuary system gets more and more advanced, they'll turn around and just say, islands are now at a place that we're happy with. And they give players a lot more freedom than a single plot in a housing ward. So we've decided we're going to decommission the housing wards. And that's it. I, for one, wouldn't be sad, to be honest, because I barely pay attention to housing anymore. I mean, if they introduce like FC islands as well, which would be really cool. And if they improve the ability to travel to and from these islands, which I think is actually going to come as well. I recall they mentioned that they're actually going to improve it at some point, instead of you having to teleport to Morby dry docks all the time. But yeah, my point I was trying to make is, islands are definitely a great system. Like, ignore the fact that I haven't really paid attention to mine, that's just me. But a lot of people have been paying massive attention to island sanctuaries. And I feel one day, very closely in the future, they're going to replace the housing system with the island system. I mean, if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. The housing system has been nothing but a problem. It's been a thorn in Square Enix's side since the beginning. Ever since they implemented, they've had nothing but issues with it. Whether it's due to demand, whether it's due to issues with the system itself, and complaints from the player base. And then you have outright abuse of the housing system where, as I said, some people own entire wards on less populated servers. I mean, fine, but they should have done something to address that after the backlash came up, but I'm not here to discuss that. I'm not even going to try and go into it, to be perfectly honest. I've made my stance clear in that I don't think one person should own an entire ward. But there you go. Yeah, Shade, that was actually one of the other topics I wanted to go into. Have you pre-ordered the Eorzea Encyclopedia 3 yet? I placed mine in as soon as I was able. Really looking forward to it. I am the same. As soon as I saw that the pre-orders were available, I was on there, my credit card was out, and I bought it right there, pre-order on the spot, because I've been waiting a very long time. Or more specifically, I should say, I didn't pre-order it right away. I went on the site and checked what the release date was, which is December. So then I realized, okay, it's not going to be ready for Fanfest in October, because I kind of wanted to pick it up at Fanfest as well, which is how I got my other two. But yeah, as soon as I saw that, I was just like, okay, I'm just ordering it right away. I was a bit hesitant, primarily because I have seen people pre-order it online before and purchase them online, and some people got misprints. Like, for example, the front printing of the first Eorzean Encyclopedia had misprints where the crystal was kind of printed outwards and it was very distorted, and some of the prints inside were misprinted as well. So I'm not sure if that was just a particular batch or what, but that's why I wanted to wait until Fanfest to get my encyclopedias originally. This was long before I started making YouTube videos. Like, I can't make YouTube videos without these things, because these are my base. These are my firmament when it comes to creating videos. So if I look up something online and I see conflicting information, the encyclopedia is my firmament for judging what is right and what is not. And when I get that new encyclopedia, I'm going to make a ton of Shadowbringers videos. I've only made a few, but once I have the firmament base, the support of the Eorzean Encyclopedia tree, I'll be making a lot more Shadowbringers videos. Like about Ronka. I'm dying to dive into Ronka. And I know the encyclopedia is going to have much more information on Ronka, which is why I've waited to actually make a video on Ronka. I think the misprints will make them valuable in a good few years. You'll probably be right. Like, misprints, especially sealed misprints, tend to be very valuable. But you'll see, you never know. If you get a misprint, maybe just keep it in the plastic. I suppose I'll get to the meat and potato. So, the meat and potato is the thing I look forward to at every Sunday dinner. So my Sunday roast is the potatoes. So, time for the potatoes of this video. Now, as I mentioned at the start of the video when somebody asked, we have 3 Fanfests coming up. We have Fanfest at the end of this month. Please look forward to it in Las Vegas. Then we have another Fanfest in October for EU. And then we have a third Fanfest at the beginning of 2024 in Japan. Now, I have a theory about what's going on, primarily concerning the main story and the side story for that matter. Let me just outline Fanfest first. So, Fanfest have been a predictable fair, to say the least. So when we go to a Fanfest, we have an idea of what to expect. So at the beginning of every Fanfest, you get a keynote address, you get a trailer of some kind, whether it's a teaser, a trailer, or extended trailer, and you get a lot of discussions from the developers regarding upcoming changes, upcoming additions in the next expansion, upcoming races, upcoming jobs. Now, if I take these 3 for example, from what I can think about, and I'm basing this on the previous Fanfests, in the Las Vegas Fanfest, which is coming up at the end of this month, don't forget, less than 30 days, we can expect a teaser trailer. Considering it's now, we're well into 6.4, we can expect a teaser trailer for FF14 7.0 expansion at Las Vegas. So at the end of this month, we can expect a teaser trailer for 7.0. Then, a few months later, in October, at EU, we can expect an extended teaser trailer, or just a standard trailer for 7.0 expansion. And then, at the Tokyo Fanfest, we'll get a full extended trailer for 7.0 expansion. Now, these 3 Fanfests will give us information about all of the upcomings for 7.0, the plots, the system changes, the graphical changes, anything and everything gets explained at these 3 Fanfests, and it's broken up evenly between the 3. So we'll get most of the teasers at NA, we'll get a lot of elaboration and extra info at EU, and then we'll get the full explanation in Japan. That's generally how the Fanfests for FF14 have worked up until this point. However, the Fanfests of the previous expansions all had a predictable layout. So I've gone into this before, but the patch cycle for FF14 is you have an expansion, then you have 3 patches in order to finish off that expansion story, then you have 2 follow-up patches, that will elaborate the main story going into the next expansion, and then the model resets itself and continues on. But my main point is, Endwalker flipped the model on its head. So when 6.0 ended, it ended all the storylines that came before, and that meant that 6.1, 6.2, all the way to 6.5 are going to be new stories or setting up for the next decade. We can't really read Endwalker properly because we don't know exactly what's going to be happening, because everything just seems to be laying out a new narrative. They've been dropping hints left, right and center. We can't really piece together exactly where it's going. 6.5 is going to be the last puzzle piece that's going to put everything together. But my main point is this. At the previous Fanfests, so when the first Fanfest would come around for Shadowbringers, for example, we got the teaser trailer for Shadowbringers. By that point, we were already past Stormblood. So patch 4.3 was already gone by that point, and we were already waiting and expecting the new expansion, and the story was already setting us up for the coming of Shadowbringers. Like, we knew something was happening, something was coming, but we didn't know what it was, and then we got the Shadowbringers teaser trailer, and that started to put the pieces into place. And that's what happened with the previous expansions as well. However, everything is different now. We're in patch 6.4 at the moment, and we have a teaser trailer, more than likely. It's 90%, I'm 90% sure there's going to be a teaser trailer for 7.0. But we're at a point where we don't really understand where the story is going. So we can expect the teaser trailer for 7.0 in a month's time, less than a month's time, to give us a picture of what 7.0 is going to be and inform us about exactly what the hell is going on with the story of FF14 right now. Because as of right now, we have no idea where 7.0 is going. We can see a lot of things being set up, but we don't know what's happening. And I have a theory. I have a feeling that everything that's happened in this expansion, the main story with the Void, Golbez and all the others, the side story with 12, and all the other side quests like Tataro's Grand Endeavour, and all the other side content in FF14 and Walker, is all accumulating and is going to combine together into the narrative of what's going to happen in 7.0. So I have a feeling that the entire expansion, Alliance Raid and main story and beyond, has all been the same narrative, writing the main story of what the firmament is going to be in 7.0 and what we can expect. So I hope I made that as clear as I can. It's been rattling around my brain for a while, but it's had me in a weird place, because we've never been at this point before. Like, when a Fanfest was coming, as I've already said, when we were waiting for our first Fanfest, and we knew a teaser trailer was going to be coming for the next expansion, we were already having a general idea of where things were going. We knew something was going on, but the teaser trailer elaborated on it. With Shadowbringers, for example, we knew, alright, things are happening. The Scions are fainting and going into comas. We don't know what's going on. And then all of a sudden we learned that we're going to another world. So that set the narrative for the rest of the patches to come. But right now we're in the dark, which is an unusual place for us. Like, we've had a lot of stories going on, but we don't know exactly where it's going. It could literally go any direction right now. But the teaser trailer is going to inform us about what's going on. I have a question that's semi-related. Do you think that the 12 are on the different reflections, or do you think they're limited to just the source? That's a good question. So, if we think about this, right, 6.3 ended with an elaboration or a nod to some 13th figure that's related to the 12, and everybody suddenly started to assume that it's the Watcher on the Moon, which I guess, okay, I don't think it's going to be him, but I think he's going to have some idea where to point us. But if you think about the Watcher doesn't only exist on the source. There was a Watcher on the 13th who Golbez likely slayed or slew. It's slew, yeah. He slew. Yeah, he slew the Watcher on the 13th in order to take control of the moon. So, if I was going to say it, I'd say no. Because we've only visited, well, we visited a couple of worlds at this point, but we've only really interacted with one properly, and that was the first. We saw no mention of Faith in a Daisy 12 Pantheon. In my opinion, they're indicative of the source. I think they had something to protect on the source. What it is, we don't know. But the fact that they're hovering above Lake Silvertear and their gateway is in Silvertear is no coincidence. What is the firmament though? I still can't put my finger on all of it. Like, I can kind of theorize as to how the whole Golbez saga might end, but it doesn't tell me anything about 7.0. That's the thing, we don't really understand exactly what's going on. We know now that Golbez is not actually Golbez. Golbez is his friend wearing his armor, most likely. And we know that the real Golbez's Memoria Crystal is now merged with Zeramus. So we're going to see that playing out at some point. But the couple of years they've spent on this main story, playing it all out, seems to be coming to a head with the teaser release. So this teaser is going to inform us about exactly what's going on. So we have a lot of puzzle pieces. We haven't been able to define the edges of it yet, but this teaser trailer is going to define the edges. It's going to give us a road map essentially. We're walking along the road. We don't really see what's happening. This teaser trailer coming out is going to show us something in the distance, and we're going, okay, so that's where we're going. Because right now we don't have a clue where we're going. I'm also looking forward to hearing whether or not there's going to be any changes in Creative Business Unit 3. Because let's not forget, that business unit was split in two in order to develop 14, or develop updates for 14 and develop 16. And Naoki Yoshida was split between the two as well. Now that there's nothing but patches to do for 16, can we expect some change in the development cycle of 14 now that 16 is no longer on the equation? And this mainly comes to the fact that the patches are long and far in between. It's no exaggeration when I say players are getting frustrated about the fact that there's 6 months between stories. But they're getting particularly frustrated with Endwalker. And a lot of people are viewing Endwalker as a weaker expansion. It started off incredible because it tied a bow on everything. But afterwards, a lot of people are of the opinion that Endwalker is not grabbing their attention. And I'd frankly agree. Because unless you're paying attention to the entire thing, you're going months and months and months between patches. And the patches to a lot of players don't feel that long or that detailed. So they'll digest it within a couple of weeks, a month maybe, and then they're gone. Then 5 months later, a new patch comes out and they're like, alright, I've been away for so long. This is a model that's been encouraged by Yoshi P. He says, you shouldn't just devote yourself to playing 14. Play it for as long as the content interests you and then come back when new content comes out. It's fine. But a lot of people are of the opinion that the patch cycle is just too long now. And I'm in the camp that agrees. It's too long between stories. What if the 13th member is actually Azem and they weren't set up by Vana but Azem? Well, we are Azem's soul. We know that. Although we do know fragments of our being still exist on the other reflections, and a lot of them have probably passed on as well back to the Ethereal Sea. And we can't forget that soul does not make the being. Memory is also a factor. Just because we're the reincarnation of the soul of Azem doesn't make us Azem. It makes us, yeah, we have his soul, we're reincarnated of course, but we don't have his memories. So we're not the actual being Azem. So his memories are probably If they haven't dispersed, he's still sleeping in the Ethereal Sea. Or she, or they. In terms of the 12 being their creation, I'm not fully certain. It is interesting to think about, but if you think about this, Azem, the original Azem, has had influences on the side story of Endwalker. So, for example, he somehow expected that we were going to show up. His future incarnation is going to show up on Elpis to assist Elidibus. God knows how he knew that, considering we travelled back tens of thousands of years, long after Azem was dead, and somehow he knew we were going to show up. My theory on that is regarding that we're going to travel to the past, even further back than Elpis, in order to meet ourselves. I don't know how that would work, but it would inform about why we ended up turning up again, because there's no way to predict that your future incarnation is going to show up at an exact point in time to assist somebody. How would you know that? There's no way for you to know. It's like pointing at the sky and just going, I predict a comet is going to fly out of the sky and hit me. No, doesn't happen. It's been a confusing plot point for me. I don't really understand it. But in terms of whether or not the 12 are his creation or their creation, it would be interesting, but I don't think so. Azem clearly had their own motivations. They didn't side with the convocation, so hence that this 13th seat was vacated. They also didn't side with Vana, and they chose to do their own thing and have themselves sundered in the process when Hydaelyn went through her plan. Whether or not he actually knew that was her plan originally is anybody's guess. I'm going to assume the answer is no, though, because he was approached originally in order to summon Hydaelyn, and he refused. I'm assuming he didn't want his soul to be destroyed. And I'm assuming Vana knew that at this point. She knew that we were Azem's reincarnation at that point. So she would have went, I need your help on this, but I'm not going to let you sacrifice yourself, because you will be needed. Do you think there might be a time skip coming with 7.0? It's only a matter of time until the twins get tall. Shade of Red, I actually did make a video about that a while back. So if you check my channel and look for time skip, I actually did make a video on my theories on why I think there is going to be a time skip. So if you haven't seen that yet, I highly recommend you check that out. So I went into all my theories regarding that. But in my answer, I think it's highly plausible that we would get a time skip. My main theory for it, just to reiterate the main discussion of that video, my main theory was with the massive graphical changes that are incoming for 7.0, which are going to change the overall look of the game, it would be a perfect time to update landscapes, cityscapes, NPC characters in order to progress the story onto the next decade. Yeah, please do. It was a video I really enjoyed watching, or creating rather. But yeah, that was my main theory, that the graphical changes directly coincide with 7.0, and that would be the perfect opportunity to make NPCs grow older, landscapes to change, cities to be properly rebuilt after the calamity. If you look at some cities, they're still recovering from the calamity. Like in Ul'dah, the is it the Melvanith ossuary is still closed because it was damaged in the calamity. So right here was the temple of worship for Nald, I think it was, or Thal. I think it was probably the worship place for Thal, and it was damaged in the calamity, so now nobody gets in. I think Nonamida has some, yeah. Milvaneth Sacrarium, dedicated to the worship of Nald, was extensively damaged during the calamity. Repairs continue even to this day, to the great inconvenience of our adherents. So, a lot of people who came here for the worship of Nald instead go to the Asenath ossuary, where the Thaumaturge's Guild is, in order to do their worship. But the point is, you have places like this that were available in 1.0 that have been sealed off ever since 2.0 and beyond, primarily because they just didn't need to add them, I guess. But also just like to say, like, yeah, the calamity damaged this place, nobody can go in here. But it's been a decade now. I mean, I think the repair should be done by now. So 7.0, open up this place, please. And my theory as well is, do you know the way Nald'Thal is a combination of the two gods, of the two deities? I think because Ul'dah is the central place of worship for Nald and Thal, is that the reason they're both of them are merged now is because both of their places of worship are now merged into one. And if I think about it, I think, who's the one who's always on top? We rarely hear from the one on the bottom. So which one's Nald and which one's Thal? Hang on a sec. Yeah, so that's Nald. That's Thal. Yeah, so think about it like this. So the Milvanith Sancarium is a place for the worship of Nald. And then the Azeneth Ossuary, where the Thaumaturge's Guild is for the worship of Thal. And now that this place is no longer accessible, people who need to worship Nald now go to the Ossuary in order to worship him. But then the worship of the two of them kind of became intertwined. So now it's the worship of Nald'Thal. And then as you saw with the character of the 12 within the Alliance raid, both of them are merged together, with Thal being the central figure. Because if you look at the worship happens in the Azeneth Ossuary, which was primarily for the worship of Thal, and Thal's statue was there. So I didn't really make that connection until that point. That's very interesting, actually. Because when you walk in here, the statue before you is not Nald'Thal, that's the statue of Thal. So that's why Thal is always on the top in the cutscenes, and he's the one doing the talking. Or technically, the both of them are doing the talking, but don't forget that the two of them rotate, and they do have the ability to separate again. But I think because we know the faith of Eorzea changes the 12, depending on how they feel about the faith, the fact that they're doing all their worship in the Temple of Thal, and worshipping Nald'Thal as a single entity now, which is why they merge together, but why Thal is the dominant one on top all the time. That's cool. That is so subtle. I never realized that until this point. That's really clever. I have to say I'm impressed. I don't know why I didn't put that piece together till this very point. I still want to check out Gelmora because of Duskwight heritage. Duskwights have been done dirty. Like, I'm not really the biggest Eorzea fan. I'm a Lalafell, true to form, always and forever. But I do like all of the races of Eorzea. But the Duskwights, in my opinion, have been done very dirty. I mean, if you look at their counterparts on the first, they're nothing but bandits and brigands who are constantly trying to rob people, constantly cursing at people. They're like, just feck off and stuff like that. Like, the Duskwights have been done very dirty. And their lore is very limited in FF14, in my opinion. Like, to the point I can't even point out, or I can't even remember a single Duskwight off the top of my head. I remember our Scion friend, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but that's another prime example. Duskwights have just, like, they're one of those races that are just left behind. Which is unfortunate. They really should, this is an opportunity as well in 7.0. Flesh out the lore of the other races. You don't need to add any more races. We don't need any more races. Don't add another one. Please, love of God. We don't need any more races. Finish the Hrothgar. Give them their female. And that's it. The Lala Islands to the south are a thing, right? Maybe we could go there in 7.0 for something. Lala lore. I did actually point out the South Sea Isles in my video of where to next for 7.0 and beyond. So if you haven't watched that, Kragon, I recommend you watch it. I pointed out a lot of locations that could potentially be added. the South Sea Isles are on top of my list. Not only because the Nald'Thal race originated from there, but also the art of the Arcanist also originated from there. It would be a nice actual chance to visit a very unique sort of environment. Although I will say, a lot of people haven't been looking forward to zones with more water. And the main reason I mean that is... I'm going to teleport there right now, actually. I always get these two mixed up. Will I end up underwater or above water? Above water, okay. This zone is loved by some, hated by the rest. Primarily because it's just water everywhere. But in my opinion, the depths of the water under here was so underutilized. There were so many opportunities for Easter eggs, unknown little discoveries to be made in this underwater environment. But so much of it was just underutilized. You got a couple of environments, of course, like the undersea environments. You got the undersea palace over the other side. But a lot of people just got frustrated with the constant swimming around, which is why we didn't see many seas afterwards, like added to the game. We got some waters that we could dive in the first, but they weren't fully immersed into the main story. Like some aspects of it were when we had to help out Bismarck, but otherwise they haven't really explored underseas again ever since they did this zone in particular in Stormblood. Which in my opinion is a shame. I enjoyed it, and the South Sea Isles would be a prime opportunity because it is stated in lore that the inhabitants of the South Sea Isles use catamarans in order to travel between the small islands. So we could get our own catamaran and start traveling between the islands. I'd love that. If I got a catamaran mount or something like that to travel between these islands, I'd freaking love it. But yeah, it all comes back to this. Like, I can remember my WoW days. I remember my WoW days very vividly, to be honest. And I remember that the underwater was one of the best things to go through in WoW in terms of a lore perspective, because there was a lot of Easter eggs, a lot of little nuggets lying around that you could discover. And with this place, and with other new underwater places that they added nothing with it from a lore perspective. Like a prime example is one that came up recently. I know there's a ship, the Easter egg over here, which is the Kobayashi Maru, which is a Star Trek reference, of course, and there's a ship under there, but there's not really much else. I mean, you see those sharks swimming around? I remember getting very scared by one of these as soon as it came out of the corner of my eye the first time I saw one. I was just like, oh my god, it's a shark. And I thought it was going to attack me until I realized it's not actually there, it's background art. And that annoyed me. I really wish it would like chomp you and then you fainted and ended up on the land or something. That would have been funny. But yeah, it is what it is. But a prime example of that was added just recently in a couple of patches ago, if I recall correctly. So we're heading to Bronze Lake. It's arguably one of my favorite zones. I can remember sitting here fishing for hours on end. But if you recall, a couple of patches ago, this zone had underwater accessibility added. I'm not exactly sure why. I haven't been interacting with the content that directly involves the undersea fishing here. But the day it was added, I came here going, oh my god, they added underwater for the Wanderer's Palace. I'm like, there has to be little nuggets and references to the ancient city of Nim under here. The same way that the Wanderer's Palace before the Calamity was entirely underwater. Then the water dropped down halfway after the Calamity happened. And then it exposed the palace above us. So I'm like, what else is down here? And to my utter amazement, there was nothing. The only thing down here is the foundations of the palace itself. No little nuggets, no little writings or scrawls on the walls, nothing to reference that this was once a city, no hidden pathways, no bridges, no nothing. And that really annoyed me. They went through the trouble of adding this zone, and it's only for fishing or some quest that I haven't even interacted with. From a lore perspective, there's absolutely nothing. I mean, they did a great job designing it, but you would have thought that when they designed it like this, they would have given us something, anything, of lore significance. Like, you see these people knocking around, fishing. I'm assuming it's spearfishing down here, but it just annoys me that there's nothing down here. There's fish floating around, and that's it. It really bugged me, actually. To be perfectly honest, it really did bug me. Because I came down here so excited. The first day I was at it, I'm like, oh my god, what am I going to see? What secrets of Nim are down here? Is there going to be a statue or something? And there was nothing. And that upset me, to be honest. I left utterly disappointed. There was much more above the water that interested me than there was below it. Which I assume would make sense. I'm assuming this palace was built because the water level was actually probably this high originally, or just slightly lower. But still, I expected to find something down there. Like a little Easter egg, a statue, anything. Like a lost Tonberry lamp or something, like anything. Although, I want to actually talk about something to you as well. This is something I haven't mentioned before. And it's something that has been at the back of my mind for quite a while. Okay, for this I need to bring up one of my information sources. Yep, there we go. So, Gilly Alapo states, because this is the event that dealt with the Tonberries, if you recall, and the dressing up as Tonberries during Hatching Tide. So she says, what luck, wouldn't you agree? Hamlin was kind enough to furnish our other volunteers with Tonberry guises. And we're all hard at work preparing for the upcoming fun. And then we get a response that says, we've actually met Tonberries before. Which we have. And then Hamlin speaks up, you must be referring to those sightings near Bronze Lake. I wouldn't expect you to know this, but those creatures aren't true Tonberries. They simply bear a vague resemblance to the descriptions in the old stories, and thus were nicknamed thusly. No, the Tonberries I speak of and adore above all else are the original and fictional creatures, spoken of in legend from time immemorial. Except no substitutes. And this set off a light bulb in my mind, just going, okay, hang on a second. So he doesn't consider the Tonberries that reside in Bronze Lake to be Tonberries, and in many ways he's correct, they're not. It was the Green Death that turned them into Tonberries, and void magic was involved with that, as we know. But it also confirmed to us, because I always thought about this before this event came up. I thought about, do Tonberries actually exist? Or is it possible that there are Tonberry looking void scent that we haven't seen yet? We never saw them. But this in my mind confirmed that Tonberries have been an object of myth in Eorzea society for a long time. And this guy knows what they look like. He's able to make the costumes out of them. And they just happen to look very similar to the Tonberries that we see in Bronze Lake from the survivors of Nim. But this added to my mind, just going, is it entirely possible that true Tonberries do actually still exist in other parts of the world? And is it possible that when we start getting access to other parts of the world, like Mericidia for example, that we might actually start seeing genuine article Tonberries? So it was mainly this dialogue that just set me on this path, and I just found it very interesting, the fact that the main thing he's going off is stories and legends, but he turned his nose up at the other Tonberries, just saying they're not Tonberries. And he's like, accept no substitutes. He obviously accepts substitutes when he dresses people up as Tonberries, so why doesn't he accept these people who are clearly Tonberries in our mind? We know what Tonberries look like. These people are Tonberries. But this guy seems to know better. But the main reason I'm bringing this up is because Endwalker has been an endless drop of hints. So is it possible that they just snuck in a tiny hint about an upcoming beast tribe that's being added? And it could end up being the genuine Tonberries. So I would be genuinely surprised if we actually got real Tonberries. And maybe they added, like, they're going, the new beast tribe and Tonberry show up, and I'm like, yes. Maybe real Tonberries are void loppers. You're not the first person to say that in Sandy Pepper. If I recall correctly, you said that before. Void loppers. Void loppers are interesting. It makes you wonder if loppers actually did exist. I'm gonna assume they did exist on the 13th at some point. Did Hydaelyn properly plan for the exodus of the reflections the same way she planned for the exodus of the source? Because Hydaelyn herself, as far as we're aware, exists in the ethereal sea connected to the source, or if the ethereal sea connects them all, we're not fully certain. But as far as we're aware, we didn't see any ship or any evidence of Loporrit civilization on the moon, but you only got a small look at the moon, so it's entirely possible that they were there at one point and that the infrastructure is actually below the surface. So, plausible. But if they end up being void Loporrits, that would be interesting. I'd like that idea. Fourth job, you can find a Moogle. Wait, really? Feu was saying that the delivery moguls from beyond, wherever that is, Kupo, have high hopes for you. I wonder if they have high hopes for me too. Yeah. Interesting. Alright, so you are right. So there is actually Moogles on the first. But I'm assuming most of them are gone by this point because they're territorial lands. Because they inhabited the 12's Wood on the source and other regions. But with most of those regions gone now, everybody's displaced, of course, so there's very few of anybody left. So I'd say there's probably very few Moogles left. But it's good to see one actually here. So yeah, that is good confirmation that Moogles actually did exist on the first. Thank you for that. She's got elementals. Now this is the interesting one. Like, an artist in the medium of names. It is my job to adorn the flora and fauna of Aetheris, such as these creatures you see here, with names befitting their natural beauty. Yet you didn't give us a name. But yeah, if you're wondering, in 1.0, when I was talking about the elementals earlier, this is what the elementals looked like when we encountered them in 1.0. So whenever we talked to them and saw them in the 12's Woods, this is them. This is what the elementals look like. You don't really see these models around 2.0 and beyond anymore. They still exist, of course they do, but you rarely see them anymore. In terms of what's going to be happening soon, I'm in the middle of scripting my latest video at the moment. I actually did start the script for this next video before my video about the creation of Eorzea. However, I was waiting for a book to arrive before I actually finished it, and it's this book here called The Chronicles of Light for FF14. Now, this book, even though it's in paper form, all but 2 of the stories are actually available on the FF14 website, like the Tales of the Storm, Tales of the Shadow and stuff like that. But there are a couple of other tales in it, and they were mainly my focus, and they're going to be my focus of the next video. It's taken me longer than anticipated, but I am trying to reinvent my writing style as well. And I'm trying to cut out as many syllabants as I can as well in my writing, because I'm tired of doing although I am trying to improve, although I did fall off the wagon with my last video, unfortunately. So if you got annoyed by that, sorry, it is what it is. They can't not give us a teaser trailer. I think if the people at that FanFest didn't get a teaser trailer for 7.0, they would flip out. Like, if they get news about it, great. But it's entirely plausible as well that you wouldn't get a teaser trailer, because we don't know exactly where the plot is going, and a teaser trailer might spoil the plot about what's going to happen with Golbez. So it might be spoiling 6.5 before 6.5 was a thing. Although, thinking about it, they might actually do a release of information regarding 6.5 in that FanFest as well. So we get our first look at that instead of doing it in a live letter. But I think my first guess was correct, that we'll get a teaser trailer for 7.0 at Las Vegas. We'll get an extended teaser trailer in London in October. Then we'll get a full trailer from Japan in 2024. At the very beginning of 2024 as well. And then probably like, I'll say 6 months after that. So I'd say summer 2024 is the release of 7.0. That's my prediction. So probably a year from now. Yeah, we'll leave it there. I think we'll leave it all there. So, done. So, I will do my next video probably in the next couple of weeks. I'm still in the middle of scripting it, as I said. I'm trying to make it more digestible. I'm trying to improve my writing ability as well. So, trying to put all the facts together and then write it in a proper tale. I'm also trying not to make it too long, because it is starting to look like it's going to be very long. I will say it's a character biography from start to finish. I didn't want to do it right away because I wanted to get a few patches in to see if there would be any changes, and there wasn't. But it's going to take me a while, so I'll do that as usual, and then I'll do a trailer, or not a trailer, a live stream afterwards as usual to follow up that video. But I'd say that would probably be very close to FanFest as well, and we're likely going to get more information about NA FanFest, so I'll cover that as well as other topics and stuff like that as well. But I will leave it there. So everybody, thank you very much for joining me tonight, and I wish you all a very relaxing Sunday. I know a lot of you, your Sundays have probably only begun, or you're still in the middle of them. Here in Ireland, we're winding down now. It's almost 9 o'clock. It is what it is. Work tomorrow. Life goes on. It is what it is. So everybody, thank you very much, and I wish you all a very good night, and I look forward to talking to you all again after my next video launches. But if you do have any questions or anything else, or you want me to cover anything, feel free to ask in the comments of the videos or just message me. Same to you, Shade. Have a great night. Everybody, good night and have a good one.